All right, guys. I hope you guys are in great spirits as y'all pull this breakdown up. Okay. But as y'all can see by the title, we're going to see what's really going on with Wendy Williams from an astrological point of view. Some of you guys already seen the post that I made on Instagram and on YouTube. Okay. First of all, prayers up to her and her loved ones. Seen some images of her and some clips from this documentary that's out that I haven't got a chance to see. And I'm really not honestly, I'm not interested in seeing it because I'm sensitive towards certain things and I just don't like how she looks right now. Now, for some of y'all that seen my post, y'all seen that I highlighted Saturn. So we're gonna start there. But for the most part, I want to just go through her chart influences. I want to go through something that I seen with her annual perfection transits that is significant. And let's run through her transits, which I didn't get a chance to do that, and we'll do that together. All right, guys. So once again, the post that I made on YouTube and Instagram, I really just dialed in on her Saturn. Why? Because guys, she's in her Saturn return right now. She's 59. We know the two Saturn return phases are as every 30 years. So ages 27 to 30, ages 57 to 30. I mean 57 to 60. 27 to 30, 57 to 60. Saturn stays in the sign for about 3 years. We're about to see we're about to be a year down with Saturn in Pisces in a few. Okay. Well, Saturn entered Pisces sometime early spring last year, but we basically about to knock that first year down. So the reason I wanted to look directly at that, and the reason it stood out to me is because when it comes into our Saturn return, that is a phase where we have to prove to universe that we're aware of what we need to do in order to structure our reality. Saturn rules reality, is the father of time. So when we're talking about placing restrictions and boundaries in the right areas, placing time into the right things, learning what discipline looks like, depending on the sign and house we have it in. So when it comes into the house we have Saturn in, this is where we need to be applying these properties and where we'll be experiencing these restrictions and boundaries to let us know, yeah, this has to be a house that has to be structured with these properties. The sign that you have Saturn in, being a part of that generation, you have to learn how to filter Saturn through that sign because you will have things restricted and limited in that sign. So when it comes into Saturn in Pisces, we know Pisces already dealing with the imagination, the connection to the astral realm, things that are outside of reality in general. So we're dealing with a lot of escapism influences in Pisces. So whether it comes, if you have a sign that's dealing with being high and being into their imagination and tapping out of reality and being connected to influences outside of reality, then they can manifest attachments. They could manifest overindulgence. They can manifest, these situations where they're trying to utilize certain tools to support these escapism, like, coping mechanisms in their life. So with Saturn and Pisces, you have to be able to see the reality to these things. You have to be able to see the reality of things dealing with, placing time and structuring things with your imagination, placing time and building a system dealing with your healing journeys, because Pisces dealing with a lot of healing properties. Understanding the reality of how you attaching yourself, dealing with attachments in general, especially if it's leading into you developing negative coping mechanisms and you trying to just be outside of reality a lot of times. That's when Saturn can hit really hard. Now, I heard she's had issues with alcoholism. And Pisces has a lot of influences. Once again, dealing with inebriation. I don't know if that's the exact pronunciation of it or if that word being inebriated or whatnot. But the opposite of being sober, being under the influence or whatnot. Pisces has rulership over alcoholism, being high in any sort. In any sort. This is why strong Pisces placements is one of the signs that can manifest a lot of attachment energy, because once again, it helps them feel like they're having this connection to the astral realm, to their dreams, to their imagination, and escaping reality. So if you have a strong Pisces like influences, this is something that need to be monitored in your life. You got strong 12th house influences, this need to be monitored. You got strong Neptune influences, this need to be monitored. Y'all know how open I am about my journey. I have Neptune conjunct my ascendant and the moon. They're all together. They're all together. Neptune and my Uranus is right on top of my moon and my ascendant. So I know deep in my core, I could build heavy attachments to certain things. So y'all know my journey that I've been able to sustain coming off my Saturn return in a space where I don't drink no more. I don't smoke. I'm abstaining from sex. And the thing is, there used to be a point in my life where I used to feel like, okay, let me just detox from smoking and hopefully I could get to a point in my life where I could smoke but not overindulge into it. I don't want to do it no more. I'm done. I don't want to have that a part of my lifestyle no more. And there's no judgment to others, but I'm just aware. I'm aware of multiple influences dealing with attachment and whatnot, especially that Neptune energy being channeled in those negative ways. And I definitely was trying to escape from doing a certain work and whatnot when it comes into my reality. So Neptune and Capricorn generation, hopefully if that's you, you know, you understand how you may attach yourself to these different escape mechanisms, whether it's a person, place, or thing, substance, habit, in order to duck the work that has to be placed into building your business, establishing your reality, establishing things in your career life, establishing stability and security in your life. Neptune can start to, that's the dark side of Neptune in the Capricorn generation. All right. So with all that being said, you know, that's what we got going on with Saturn energies from what we attract from where Saturn is at and what we have to establish. Saturn is one of the most karmic points in the chart in general. Outside of the nodes and outside of the aspects hitting our sun and moon, this is the most karmic point in the chart. Once again, it rules reality. So, you know, Wendy has Saturn at 4 degrees in Pisces in the first house and it's retrograde. So for one, we know Saturn and Pisces generation has to learn how to, once it place time into things dealing with their imagination, creative endeavors, healing journeys, place time into things dealing with intimate connections. Pisces deals with making connections with, not just making connections, all water signs deal with connecting, but Pisces dealing with feeling the subconscious of others because it's mutable. So mutable is the spread. Mutable is flexible and adaptable. Mutable is interchangeable energy. It's very formless. So Pisces can lose itself trying to understand the emotions of others, prove that it could be understanding, is it naturally has a sensitive archetype towards the influences of the world and others. So Saturn and Pisces generation, that's already showing us that if you are part of the Saturn and Pisces generation, you need to learn how to have boundaries with how you go about connection. You have to be able to identify when you're losing yourself in a state of connection in some type of shape or form. So that's already one thing Saturn and Pisces has to understand. Now, this is huge because the as far as placing boundaries and Saturn and Pisces already has to place restrictions and boundaries on things dealing with connection. So Saturn is in a first house. So it's already opposing planets in the relationship house, which we're gonna get to there, but we're still warming up Saturn and Pisces in general, or just that first house placement before we start looking at the activity it has. So we know that. Then it's in the first house. First house dealing with personal development, personal goals, personal awareness, personal aspirations. First house, birth energy. So it's dealing with the things that you want to birth and throw into existence, right? When you have Saturn in the first house, you have to make sure you're taking your time with these things, okay? You got to make sure you're taking your time with these things. Got to make sure there's proper planning and structuring, and you're honoring the journey of taking your time with building things with your personal aspirations, especially the first house dealing with the body. So wellness is very important here. You know, when we're talking about how you're taking care of the body in general, when you got certain significant planets in the first house, especially Saturn, especially Saturn. I'm a Saturn in the first house native. Okay, so I could tell you all about that. And so her being such a her being having Saturn and Pisces in the first house, when it comes into these creative influences that she has in general, these are things that she's gonna have to once again honor the time and the structure and the planning towards these things. Now, wherever Saturn's at, you can overwork too. Is a balance to everything, guys. So wherever Saturn's at, you can overwork too. And she might have manifested some situations where, she ended up neglecting a lot of other things in order to really fulfill things dealing with that personal journey she was on, dealing with a creative pursuit, dealing with a dream, dealing with something she was trying to bring into fruition, and she placed all her time. So it has to be balanced, guys. Balance with everything. Then it's at 4 degrees and is retrograde. Okay. So when we're looking at 4 degrees, that's 2 degrees away. That's 2 degrees away out of a cusp. So it's a very early degree. So early degrees are very eager and excited, and they're very active. They jump quick and reflect later. It's very childlike. So it's showing a new journey, but it's also showing that there's been experience built up so far, but it's still in early stages. And when I say experience, I'm speaking more so from a past life perspective. Okay. And it's retrograde. So that's already showing us in these early stages in her from her past life accumulation. There's been some errors and mistakes she's been making dealing with establishing Saturn energy in her personal life and especially amongst Piscean like things. So guys, we got all that together and we ain't even say nothing about this Chiron investor. Oh man, we ain't say nothing about this Chiron investor conjunction in Pisces. We're gonna get more into asteroids, guys, as we move along throughout 2024. I know that's something you guys ask questions about. But when we're looking at that influence of all these energies in the first house, now the reason it was so pivotal for me to focus on these things because her Saturn opposes, you see these two red lines, her Saturn opposes Pluto and Uranus in the seventh house. These are two extreme energies to have in your relationship houses. Just having one of these placements in your relationship houses is pretty intense. And every planet has its positive and negative side to it, guys. So, but we can't negate or neglect the intensity certain planets bring in general. So for one, they both deal with transformation and they both deal with power and control energies. So first, you got Uranus, wherever Uranus at in the chart, we know is going to deal with establishing your individuality, and you're going to have people that challenge your individuality, and you fighting for it, you meeting that opposition. Keyword with Uranus opposition being opposing, but you meeting the opposition is what's going to help you spiritually grow when it comes into developing your individuality in the world, and that's what causes this house to transform a lot. Then you got Pluto that deals with transformation because it's dealing with our deep passions and desires. It's also dealing with our attachments and our ability to evolve outside of our attachments and initiate transformations in our life, or we'll experience transformations because we've overindulged into our desires. Pluto really is trying to heal them things. Okay. So she has both of these influences in her life. So being able to navigate her deep desires and people trying to gain power and control over her individuality and relationships has been a huge issue her whole life, and it's a lot of karma behind it because Saturn is opposing these things. Whatever the aspect Saturn is making from an opposite or square perspective, guys, is very important. These things are going to keep us in blockages, or keyword Saturn blockage. It could create a lot of blockages. um it's going to be a roadblock and obstacle we have to get over, and if we can't understand how to really work for one, you got to learn how to place time into dealing with the energy that it is. So if you have Saturn in the first house, take it from me, Saturn in the first house native. When it comes into my relationship life or whatnot, it's opposite. So I have to understand how the things I'm placing time into in my personal life is affecting my relationship life. But the fact that she has planets in the seventh house, I don't have planets in seventh house, so I don't know what that's like. So the fact that she has planets in the seventh house and the first and Saturn's opposing it, these are the things she has to learn to restrict, aka people trying to tempt her with the desires or having any desires that are waved in front of her in relationships to make her participate with things. for other people's personal gain. Pluto, Uranus, situations dealing with partnerships where her individuality is being compromised. She's gonna have to learn how to personally restrict that. But the thing is, her Saturn's in Pisces, so it may her having her individuality compromised may come off as a gain for something dealing with stability. Saturn stability and Virgo, these planets being in Virgo. So she may compromise herself in order to gain stability and security. Guys, before we even get there, I need y'all to understand something. Uranus is dealing with Freemasonry. Uranus is dealing with secret society energy. I'm going to be making a new tier, diving more into things dealing with the occult, gematria, which is a form of numerology, tapping more into things dealing with secret society energy, because that is not really something I could be all up on Instagram and YouTube teaching. They're very big on censoring those things. So I'm gonna make another tier on Patreon for people that want to understand those things, because the more I get deeper into my journeys using astrology to break things down, I'm also seeing how gematria and things dealing with the industry and whatnot is playing a part. But even though before I start getting into things dealing with, the numerology behind things or whatnot, the astrology still shows it. So this type of alignment, certain influences with Uranus, Aquarius, the 11th house, the 8th house, Pluto, but especially Uranus, is going to show things with this person potentially running into things dealing with the secret society energy, dealing with Freemasonry, dealing with these different occult like influences to navigate their career life. And they have to learn how to make certain decisions. The fact that she has Saturn opposing Uranus, the fact that we know Wendy Williams has been exalted, having her own TV show for a while and being in, Hollywood for the most part, she might have walked through certain doors, to manifest the position she's in. And the whole thing is like, it's really like a cheat code in this realm when it comes into success. It could be a challenge as to see how much you're willing to discipline your desires to manifest something. So we just said Pluto deals with deep desires and it's opposing Uranus too. So look what I just broke down with Uranus. Saturn's dealing with reality, is also dealing with higher ups, authorities. The seventh house is dealing with contractual agreements. You see where I'm going, y'all? This combination of energy. So this shows that this person's dreams, this person's personal aspirations, 4 degrees is very early. So they can become their work, they're young and excited to place this sense of work and structure towards building up their dreams. If they're not looking at it like it's something dreadful, it's a young degree and it's retrograde. So, they're gonna be forced to take their time. But once again, certain hands that she shakes, certain contracts she's signed, I think it's starting to come back to bite her in the ass. And we're gonna get there. We're gonna navigate this. I'm just, I'm cooking y'all. I'm cooking. I'm warming y'all up. All right. So now with the combination of Uranus and Pluto, and with us now understanding why they bring transformation into the lot, transformation and power control issues into where they at. When you have like both of these planets in the seventh house, you have to be very aware about narcissist like partners. Remember, guys, seventh house, not just romantic mates, it's business partnerships, friendships. That's it in general. Let's not always condense this house to romance, even though it has a huge influence on it. Okay. But there's a lot of things going on with business in this area, negotiation in this area. Anything dealing with a contract or agreement that's the seventh house. The 10th house, don't get it twisted. The 10th house is dealing with career, but the 10th house is how you're seen for what you're doing on career. So Wendy Williams in the 10th house is seen for what she does in career and who she is in career, but we don't know nothing about the contract she's signing. We don't know nothing about her business deals with the platforms and whatnot to be on TV and run a show. You understand what I'm saying? That's seventh house like action, y'all. And that's why it's a square, because depending on what agreements we make in the seventh house, the connections and relationships we either sustain or participate, it has a direct correlation towards how we're seen in career, how things could be navigated, how we're seen in the world in some type of shape or form. So when we get into understanding these influences, like yes, you're gonna have to be aware of the type of attracting narcissists like partners, attracting intense power and controlling partners. Uranus, it could be It could be unstable mental health, partners with unstable mental health. Um, Pluto, partners that want to use you for their gain in some type of shape or form, have an intense form of selfishness. Her life is learning how to identify this and place restrictions in these things and blockages in these things. Having Saturn oppose her Pluto and Uranus, it shows that when she's utilizing her first house Saturn placement in a more inclined way, in a wise way, she'll actually be able to identify what relationships to participate in that are helping her positively transform in life without compromising herself. It's also going to show partnerships that are actually willing to support placing supporting her individuality and helping her heal in different ways. I've realized I've seen that she has a very her son said that because of alcoholism they don't have the best relationship. Then I also, so that's alcoholism. Now that's throwing us back into some Saturn and Pisces influences. Once again, we know alcoholism, that's a Pisces thing. That's a Pisces has rulership over that energy. So that's a personal thing that most likely squared influences dealing with her fourth house, dealing with her home environment, which she has Venus and Mars conjunct. So that's also showing that she can have very turbulent relationships, Mars with loved ones, Venus in the fourth. So she has unconditional love. This is a parent, this is a family member that has unconditional love for somebody, their sibling, their parents, but maybe based off of things dealing with their individuality or some things that they can't control, Mars, right? Or also Venus, things that they have an attachment to make them feel good. It's affecting the relationship with these loved ones. So it's not saying that they don't love them or they're not trying to place effort into dealing with them. Their habits are being their habits is causing so much of a transformation here. Actually, let me see what these energies, and then look, before we even get there, her moon is opposing both of them. Let me see where her moon is in conjunct. Her moon is in conjunct because her moon is in Scorpio. So it's opposing Jupiter in the third. It's opposing Jupiter in the third. Her children is more of a fifth house energy. Got North Node in the fifth house in Cancer, which is squaring her Saturn. Look at that. So she got North Node in the fifth house. She's gonna have to be more of a North Node in the fifth house in general, because the fifth house deal with children. If you got North Node in the fifth house, there could be a turbulent influences with the children that you have to learn how to heal. And she has it in Cancer. Cancer is dealing with the home environment. North Node and Cancer may not have the best relationship with their mother. So let's look that up real quick. Some of y'all may know this might have been something that was talked about with the parents, because uh relationship with mother. Wendy Williams' mother, Shirley Williams, dead. Let's look at this real quick, because most of the time, North Node and Cancer don't have the best relationship with their mother. Wendy confirmed her mom's death during Monday's episode, saying Shirley died beautifully and peacefully while surrounded by love. My mom passed away many weeks ago. 57. You know how you lose track for the day and time. All I know is a long time ago. The father was she had her mother pass away. I just want to see her make statements about their relationship. Reflecting her relationship with her mother, saying the two often acted like teenage girls together. Gone is the best mother, the best girlfriend that a girl could ever have. She said, holding back to that fortune I had her in my life all my 56 years. One of my granny best friends. Okay, so Wendy's mother would sometimes join the host on her daytime talk show, and fans knew of the tight bond between Mara and her mother. Okay, so they had a tight bond. Let me see something. But she's a Cancer moon, 25 degrees. I mean, excuse me, she's a Scorpio moon. Okay, so she's a sun in Cancer. So the sun in Cancer could give life to things. I mean, wherever the sun is going to give life to things. So the fact that she had the sun in Cancer, but the North Node is in Cancer in the fifth house, a lot of, once again, could see a lot of the influences of dealing with working in a home environment, placing time into that. You know, she was very active. probably very active from young, and that helped build that bond. And then remember, Saturn is trining. Excuse me, I said square, guys. This is a trine. Saturn 4 degrees, Cancer 1 degree. So it's a trine. So not only is her sun in the same sign as her north node, so that makes her naturally forced to jump into taking action with things dealing with spiritual development at the same time. But her Saturn was there, trining it. Anything Saturn trines, it shows this is something you naturally intrigued, devoted, committed to. Saturn deal with long-term energy. Something you're naturally committed and devoted towards placing time into building and structuring. You know, so yes, Saturn comes through for her trining the North Node in the fifth house. But we know what the fifth house is dealing with: creative expression, being on the stage. North Node in the fifth house has to learn how to embrace being on the stage, being the star. She's been a star host for a while. That's something she's very devoted to. We already mentioned how Saturn in Pisces in the first house, this could be somebody that really places so much commitment and devotion towards what they're trying to build up with their personal creative aspirations. And she was here to experience some of that, experience being the face about the things she really cares about, bringing some things out with her true inner emotions and thoughts, Cancer, and placing it on the stage and placing it into some form of expression to have it, potentially inspire others, enlighten others in different type of ways. And this is crazy because Wendy Williams is known to be pretty blunt and direct with how she talk about people. You could blame that on a couple of things. We could blame that on that, first of all, that 26-degree Cancer sun, because the expression is way more wiser here, so it's less filtered as far as how it feels like it need to gather so much feelings and thoughts. It's cardinal water. It's gonna just push out the expression with true feeling. But you have to look at it like when somebody's elderly people, they have less filters, right? They've been through life and seen so many things. They have less filters. Cardinal Cancer's already not that much of a filtered sign in general. Venus and Mars conjunct Gemini, Lord have mercy, they're gonna have potty mouths. Mars and Gemini is gonna have that, but then Venus just adds more of it just dresses it up more nice. Okay, but if it's something that they talking about that they emotionally invested into, yes, they could be very blunt and direct about it. Now, when we look at the ruler of our fifth house dealing with children, remember we're trying to see things dealing with her son, right? So, fifth house dealing with the children. The ruler of it, her fifth house starts in Gemini. The ruler is Mercury. Mercury's in the sixth house. Okay, so it's already showing that she's invested into working on things with children, very adamant. Sixth house, working, routine, structuring things with the workspace is going to be a huge influence with the children in general. So it does show that this person is going to be very you know once again very devoted, committed towards making sure there's some type of system stability, and they're working on that. More of a priority. Sixth house deal with priority responsibility. So you have the ruler of the fifth house and the sixth house. This is going to be a huge influence to see with creative endeavors, right? Things that with creative endeavors, we could already see Saturn hitting the North Node. So she's going to be placing time into building her dreams and aspirations up from a creative space. Then the fifth house lord in the sixth house, she's going to treat that creative space like a responsibility priority. But North Node in this area is already bringing issues. It could just bring things that have to be worked on, dealing with childlike activity, connection with the children, just a connection with creation in general. You know, now her moon. Okay, there we go. There we go. I knew I was gonna find it. Moon squaring Mercury, and once again, Mercury is the ruler of her fifth. Okay, so her ability to connect, pour into the connection, right? Into the ruler of her fifth house with her creation, that be an issue at times. Okay, you got the moon having friction with the ruler of the fifth house. Yes, there could be some friction dealing with having children in the first place. Because the moon is already dealing with maternal energies, especially from a woman perspective. So she have the moon, opposing Mercury. There has to be influence, and she's a moon in Scorpio. Scorpio dealing with your deep desires, attachments, energies, what's heavy, what you're holding spiritually heavy, from some type of point of view, especially from traumas or whatnot. So you have to be this type of alignment. I would let somebody know, like when you have children, you have to be very careful how your attachments and the things that you're emotionally invested into affect the relationship with your child, you know? Yep. So that moon square to Mercury is a serious thing, especially with her Mercury being in Leo and her moon being in Scorpio. So she has deep emotions about things, passionate emotions about things, right? But her Mercury's in Leo, so that could create extreme communication about things sometimes because our Mercury puts things into the light being in Leo. Scorpio, we know, is behind the scenes energy, right? So that's the beef that they have. Leo's in the light, Scorpio's in the dark. So what happens when your emotions is in the dark, but your mouth is always putting things in the light? You end up saying things you shouldn't say. This is why this is why at times, in her shows, it'd be like, damn, Wendy got a potty mouth. Wendy just be saying whatever about anybody, this and the third. Excuse me, she got that Mercury moon square. And because her sun trines the moon, it brings more attention to her. It brings more attention when she's expressing these things. Cardinal water, once again, Cancer, small filter. Then you connect it to the moon. When you have the sun and the moon trining each other, this is a person that's going to express how they truly feel. This person is not gonna have an issue attaching their identity towards how they really feel about things. And water's dealing with what's internal, so she don't mind bringing out how she feel internally, true feelings and thoughts, out into a form of expression, and it lights up things dealing with the workspace in some type of shape or form. Sun in the sixth house. All right, guys. All right, all right, all right. This is also significant too, because the ruler of her fourth house, once again, we got all the way here. We deviated from the Saturn placement because her son, right? Her son mentioning alcoholism being an issue with their connection. So that may have been something that Wendy started getting attached to, dealing with all this intensity here, dealing with how much working time and sacrifice. Saturn did with sacrifice as well. Sacrifices she's making to build up her personal dreams. Then some of the stress, some of the guilt she may have started to feel, making certain agreements with certain people with Pluto and Uranus in the seventh house. Pluto rules the underworld, family. Pluto rules the underworld. Uranus is dealing with like I said, what we already mentioned, Freemasonry and whatnot. She might have just made some deals with the wrong people because she was so adamant about what she wanted to build personally, guys. Now, the ruler Mercury, we know Mercury rules her fourth house. Fourth house starts in Gemini and also rules her fifth house. Fourth house, family, home environment. Fifth house, children, creation energy, creative artistic energy. Mercury. So she's placing a lot of thought, a lot of, mental activity, and a lot of, a lot of intention towards making sure she works and prioritize these things. It's just that her moon in Scorpio dealing with the things that she's emotionally invested into, just moon square Mercury, is hard making those connections with what she has going on based off her deep passions, especially having a moon in Scorpio in the ninth house, her deep passion that she has to experience and explore different things in her life, reach different plateaus in her life. Ninth house could start dealing with, accomplishments in a sense, is right next to the 10th house that's dealing with accolades, milestones, and whatnot. But the ninth house, we're dealing with higher learning, right? So, is getting a degree not an accomplishment, becoming valedictorian. So when you're looking at that house having your moon in there, you're going to be striving for higher degrees of success in life in general. Okay. But yes, 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 yes. Okay. Then she got Jupiter in her third house, so it's gonna make her very distant from the influences she has around her. It's gonna make her very distant from, close friends, siblings a lot of the time because